Hello and welcome to State of the Economy. Today we have with us a member of Rajya Sabha from Congress party, Rajeev Gowda, who's going to tell us about what his party thinks about the state of the economy post the demonetization or the ravages caused by the demonetization. So why we have Rajeev Gowda here is he led the AICC research team which did an elaborate study of the economy and where it is headed, different parts of the economy, the informal sector, the organized sector, the banking sector, employment generation, and it's quite a comprehensive study. It's called the real state of the economy. Since our own program is called the state of the economy, so I thought why not get Rajeev to talk about the real state of the economy. And Rajeev Gowda is from Karnataka, and he's a former professor of economics and public policy at IIM Bangalore. So he contributes a fair bit to the Congress research, the AICC research cell, and this report particularly was put together by Rajeev Gowda. Welcome to our show.
Thank you, Venu. Pleasure to be here.
So tell us about more about the real state of the economy in the context of demonetization. I remember your report was released by former Prime Minister Manmohan Singh and former Finance Minister P. Chidambaram. The media also carried a lot of news, from the report. But give us your in-depth assessment of the real state of the economy, as you call it.
Okay, I will just highlight two central features. One central feature of the Indian economy is the informal sector. And India's GDP, about half of it comes from the informal sector, is a sector that employs about 80% of the population plus, and it's something that's driven substantially by cash.
And which was hit most by the demonetization.
Absolutely. So that is one sector about which actually data is not that readily available, but you can piece things together by visits to the ground to actually looking at other features like increased demand for Manrega, for example, which suggests that people are moving back to villages and looking for some stability, some safety net. So informal sector is one. The other thing that I'd like to highlight is the private sector. In this country, the private sector is in deep, deep trouble. They are neither, if you look at credit growth, if you look at gross fixed capital formation, investment growth, if you look at returns, their profits, etc., even their wages, all of them are either stagnant, negative, or at historic lows. So basically the private sector is facing a crisis, and if you look at if you had been to macroeconomics class, they would tell you that GDP is measured by C plus I plus G plus E minus exports minus imports. Consumption, investment, which is private, and government expenditure, exports minus imports. When you look at this equation, you find that demonetization has hurt consumption. It has investment from the private sector is in deep trouble. Government is trying to do a little bit.
That's the only bit which the government claims is probably
going up. It's a very, very difficult challenge before them, but that's a self-inflicted wound that they're trying to heal at this point. Yeah.
So do you think the budget addressed some of these issues? If you think so, where did they address?
Well, it's a question of how you interpret the budget's announcements, right? So Mr. Jaitley, for example, talked about a record allocation to Manrega, right? Now, if you just go one level below those numbers and see, you'll see that last year's estimates versus what was actually spent.
The revised estimates.
The revised estimates is 47,500 crores.
More or less the same. Yeah.
And 500 crores more this year for Manrega.
Which is hardly anything.
So it's hardly anything at all. How much of that is for arrears which have not been paid over time? And more than anything else, what does this number signify? It signifies that last year, that the economy was already hurting, And this is something that is reflected in the CSO's numbers, which show a decline in economic growth to 7.1, right? So economy was already hurting. People were already in distress and going to their own one safety net, which is Manrega.
Even before demonetization.
Even before demonetization. And now they're budgeting for it, assuming that it's going to be at the same level. Maybe the demand is going to be even more. And this is no mega credit to the government. It's a right, for people to
My
demand
information, Rajeev, is that even last year, 2016-17, demand for Manrega for employment coming from the panchayats was way higher than what eventually shows up in the revised estimate, 47,500 crores.
Right.
So, and post-demonetization, newspapers have been reporting that it's gone even more.
Yeah.
So, in a sense, Manrega is a legislated right?
Yes.
So,
government has
the
no
government can't claim that they are being generous by increasing the expenditure.
That's absolutely the case.
I mean, philosophically speaking.
Yes. So, but Mr. Jaitley's skill is in making virtue out of a necessity, in selling a story which makes him and the government look good, when in reality they have no other option, and whatever they're doing is just a small amount of what needs to be done. So, Manrega figures going up, demand going up, means that the migration that used to take place, often seasonal, to urban areas, for people who worked in construction, who worked in other migrant jobs, etc., that they've been forced to go back, and they're now looking for this safety net. So why would they go back? Because demonetization has shattered construction, it has shattered small-scale industries and MSMEs everywhere, and it shattered even plantations. You saw in Kerala that people had to move back. So this sort of a situation, who is hurt? The most vulnerable section of the people, the daily wage worker, the migrant worker, the person who's trying to send money home, during off seasons at home. These are the people who are most hurt. And somehow this government will just say, oh, that data is not there in front of us, and therefore we can ignore it. Or they're
calling it anecdotal there.
Well, anecdotes add up together to be data.
Tell me, Rajeev, I want you to, since you've taught economics, just help us deconstruct this one aspect of the post-demonetized economy, right? Now, there are three legs to a recovery from the nature of demonetization that happened.
Okay.
Like 86% of currency being removed. You have kind of indicated that aspect of the post-demonetized economy in your survey, but I want to go into a little more specifics. Now, one is the liquidity effect. Slowly the liquidity will come back, and to that extent, there should be some pickup in consumption. The second is the income effect. So many people who have lost jobs in the informal sector, as you just said, people have gone to the villages. Now, when will they get their employment back so that they are back to their earlier income levels in order to be able to spend? Now, the third, which according to me is the most serious, is the wealth effect. Real estate is the worst affected, and real estate is not just something that big real estate developers are getting hurt by, the depression in real estate prices. A large number of people living at the intersection of rural and urban, for them their land is their fixed deposit. So they, from time to time, they sell land for spending on marriage, for consumption. Now, please explain to our viewers what is the impact of this negative wealth effect, because real estate, we yet do not know what is the bottom that the real estate prices are touching.
Sure.
Because I have inquired across different cities, people are saying deals are not happening. If 100 deals had happened earlier, now only about 20 deals are happening, which seems to suggest that people are just holding on and the bottom is yet to be discovered. Do you go with that?
Yeah, actually, if you go back to Keynesian economics, in a time of depression or recession, the job of the government would be to try and create investments in infrastructure, pump money into the economy, put money in people's hands so that they would consume, and that would help the economy grow out of a depression. What demonetization did was the exact opposite. It basically took money out of people's hands and caused a depression, a recession in the economy. Now, the assumption is, as soon as some amount of remonetization happens, that it will be business as usual. Absolutely not. because what has happened is there are multiple shocks that occur. One is this income shock, where a lot of people who are on the margins of survival. You know, if you don't, you know, when what happened to all of us when we had a shortage of cash, right? We went, those of us who were lucky enough to have plastic, went to the supermarket. We stopped buying from the vegetable vendor. We stopped buying from the local kirana store because we couldn't use plastic there, right? So those are the people who relied on us for survival, and they were hit. And this same thing applies for daily wage workers who lost jobs, daily wage earners, people who go and do something, in the service economy. All of them were badly hurt, and then this larger impact in terms of wealth effect, etc., that you point out is absolutely there. But what this does is it now creates, one, for some people, they need to come back to some minimal level of survival. The second is for a larger population, what happens is they will now have a mentality to hold, right? There's a certain uncertainty. If we don't know whether to invest now or not, and let's hold off, And so that slows down an economy and its revival. And when an economy's revival is slowed down, you see the kinds of estimates from different people, at least 1% to 2%. And the more optimistic say it'll only be for 6 months.
And the economic survey admits
yes,
that the risk, demonetizing risk to GDP will spill over to the next year also.
Yeah.
Although the finance minister does not seem to agree with what the economic survey says.
Because the budget assumes 7.5% growth, which is which is one part of the fuzzy numbers story underlying this budget. So this one, just think about this. What is even 1% growth in 1 year going to cost the economy? 1,50,000 crores. Okay, that is, what is that? That is in terms of lost jobs, lost incomes, lost opportunities for people to climb out of poverty. I mean, the human impact is devastating on the most vulnerable. And people are just laughing it off, saying, oh, we're the fastest growing in the world. We could have grown much faster. Think of that opportunity cost, that opportunity
And what
loss.
about the real estate, the wealth effect on, say, people who own small tracts of land, 5 acres, 6 acres at the intersection of rural and urban India.
Yeah. So there, the chief economic advisor added one more to the new stories about why demonetization, when he said it was to fix real estate, right? The real estate market. The real estate market does have a certain amount of inflation built into it because, partly because land is often scarce, and so prices do go up. And it certainly has a significant cash component because people want to avoid either capital gains when selling or stamp duties when buying, right? So so those are the things you needed to fix. You didn't need to demonetize, and that would change, the sort of clarity on that whole sector. So what you're going to find now is demand is going to come down. As a result, prices will come down. Farmers who want to sell their land will be hurt, but to some extent, this might help, clean up that sector to some extent. But if things keep coming down, what happens? If real estate slows down, what happens? Real estate is the single sector which has the most employment impact, right? So you slow down the one sector of the economy which employs people, which employs your unskilled labor for whom you don't have other options. What is the logic of that? Right? So it's okay, you fix and tinker other things. We passed a wonderful real estate regulation bill in Parliament. Work with the states and cleaning up that whole sector, change the taxes, and then you will be in a position to cleanse that sector, not in this manner, hurting jobs,
I want
hurting the growth.
Rajeev, I want to ask you, the budget says it kind of makes it illegal to pay cash of 3 lakh and above for anything that you buy, right?
Right.
Now, overnight, and we all know that countrywide, especially in smaller towns, the circle rate of real estate is 50% of the actual market price. So, do you think that overnight people will start paying for the entire real estate deals will be done by check? I mean, and this gap between circle and market rate will disappear? Is there any framework, policy framework which addresses this, or just by this mere fiat that over 3 lakh rupees will be outlawed or made illegal, work? I mean, what's your sense?
No, I don't think it will work in that particular manner. I think basically what you're going to see is that that segment of the market which borrows money from banks, okay, is going to be able to, is not going to be significantly affected. And these are the professionals, the ones who have good bank credit, these are the ones who are able to purchase from the big builders. But the smaller players, the smaller builders, the smaller buyers, the smaller farmers who are trying to transact their land, etc., for them all they're going to face a slowdown because they still would want certain amount of cash.
Therefore, it will affect the construction workers.
Construction is going to be badly hit, and employment in that sector is going to be badly hit. That's when you see reverse migration, it's already hit.
Tell me, at a more philosophical level, I mean, I have been sort of writing in some of my commentary, I've been saying that if you look at the informal sector versus the formal sector, organized sector, there is the broader framework of this budget and various other policy initiatives of the Modi government is to suggest that that the informal sector is unclean, unethical, generating black money. So they need to be sort of caught by the scruff of the neck and pushed into the formal sector so that through demonetization, digitization, even say to some extent GST, although by itself a good reform. But I'm a little worried about the transition, the pace at which this transition is being done, and the force with it is being done. I think the disruption will be fairly long term. What do you think?
Yeah, actually, it's very unfortunate that the debate has taken that tone, especially from
the organized sector is being projected as digitized, clean. When 8 lakh crores are owed by some 10 big industrial houses to banks. So where do we stand?
No.
Where does the Congress party stand in this?
No. We stand with, we stand with everyone who is trying to work hard and make a living for themselves. First, the non-tax paying sector, right, includes agriculture, which is not taxed and therefore should not be subject to this kind of an accusation at all. But the rest of the informal economy consists of a large number of people who are below the tax levels and therefore operating in cash, etc., was perfectly normal and appropriate. If you wanted to move them to more formal methods, people will move when it is useful and appropriate. Nobody had to go sell a mobile phone and say, please purchase one. There was enough of a market, there was enough market demand for telecommunication that people voluntarily went out there and became part of it. Today, if you had let your fintech players go out there and compete, in a few years' time, people would all have started using plastic because it's a convenience instead of carrying so much cash, right? UPA started financial inclusion, and NDA is taking it to Jan Dhan accounts. So people would get their accounts, more DBT and Aadhaar card linkages, all those things, they all would converge in a nice sweet spot where everything would happen naturally without this kind of disruption.
You would have advocated a more gradualist approach.
Well, it was going to happen anyway. There was no need to move towards less cash. It would happen because that's the nature of technology, it's the nature of market competition. But more importantly, there are
also reports I read in the Economic Times that people are coming back to cash. Cash transactions are coming back to the earlier levels, pre-demonetization levels.
That's going to take, that means this whole exercise was so pointless.
I mean, I've got this empirically confirmed from online retailers like Flipkart and Snapdeal. They're saying that the
cash on delivery.
Yeah, cash on delivery back to pre-demonetization levels.
Okay. Well, what can I say? That at least means that there's some amount of cash back in people's pockets, which is a good thing. Now, no, but there's another aspect about how the economy will evolve, right? If you push, like they just did, will force all of us to go to the organized sector, then we stop buying from the pushcart vendor. We stop buying from the kirana store. We stop buying, so everything will move towards the capitalized sector.
And all this is linked to employment in a big way.
So what happens to these guys trying to pull themselves up?
And your report gives a a table of employment generation over 7-8 years. Can you like to talk about it?
Well, I'd like to point out that jobs are the central challenge for the Indian economy. Here is this economy that's growing at as faster than any other, 6-7%, right? And we're not able to create enough new jobs. And so this is something that the UPA was attacked for, because this has been when you say new
jobless
jobs,
growth. Yeah.
Jobless growth. See, it's not as if jobs are not being created.
But not at the same pace as desired.
Yeah, people are shifting from agriculture to something else. So net, it's not counted as a new job, right? If you lived in Bangalore like I did, it was full of people being hired out of colleges, and whether it was IT or BT or whatever else, the aerospace and research, and there was so much activity, and spillover effects, multiplier effects of that was all visible. So see, if anyone said jobless, I was like, what are you talking about? And we had the startup community, creating jobs. So it's a very different atmosphere there. What is hurting is that an economy that could create 10 lakh jobs in 2010, last year, this government was able to generate only 1.5 lakh jobs. Okay,
is that bad? Is it?
Where is 1.5 lakhs? Where is the 1 to 2 crores that Modi promised in his election speeches? Right. So that's the real challenge. How are you going to skill enough people? How are you going to inspire people to turn entrepreneurial? That whole exercise.
But the government claims that they've doubled the funding for Mudra Bank, which will lend to self-driven entrepreneurs.
So that's good to know.
What's your sense about working of Mudra Bank?
See, Mudra loans have been very, very small amounts. And second, some of the numbers that you see are because of reclassification of existing loans.
They shifted from NABARD and State Bank onto the Mudra Bank.
Right. So so it's not as if there's some startup explosion happening in the country. We'd like to go there. And especially if you're also going to provide resources to communities that have historically been disadvantaged as well, like Dalits and tribes, etc. So the intent is, we're perfectly fine with that. But don't sell a wrong story. Don't give numbers that don't match the reality. So Mudra loans, there's a lot more that needs to be done. See, the other important point is, nobody teaches you and me how to run a business. Some communities have the fortune of having some tacit knowledge passed down over generations. Everyone else needs to learn, or needs hand-holding, or needs to be connected to the organized sector.
You're saying that they're just still tinkering.
Boy.
Tell me, I want you to, we've just about 2 minutes left, speak about this elephant in the room, again, which budget does not address. It merely allocated 10,000 crore to recapitalize banks. And we all know that banks, public sector banks are in bad shape. The NPAs, the problem assets are of the order of 10 lakh crores. Numbers are scary. They reflect in corporate balance sheets also, who owe money to banks. They're not paying back restructured loans from the past. Finance Minister Jaitley said that this is a legacy of the UPA. Now, how do you respond to that? But they've not addressed it yet. Even this government, 3 years down the line, have not clearly addressed the NPAs.
So take off party hats and just look at what happens in business cycles, right? Well, what happens is when there seem to be a lot of opportunity, tremendous growth, entrepreneurs borrow heavily, take a gamble, and say, okay, we will invest in this infrastructure project, in that one and the other, right? And many times these gambles don't pay off, or some policy measures come in the way, and you don't get the same execution.
India claimed that they had cleaned it up.
Well, to some extent, in some natural resource like coal, etc., they put in some effort there. But the whole point is, it's not like the cycle is totally turned around, and there is, so it's not. They assume that they accuse people of corruption. No, these are gambles. That's how businesses do well.
These are risks,
risks that people take, and the risks didn't pay off. And now they have to. Someone has got to deal with that. Okay, and the government's not doing enough. Until the banks are recapitalized to a better extent, you're not going to see enough willingness to lend from their side. You won't see enough willingness to borrow. Without the private sector playing its central role in investment, How will you see growth? How will you see job creation? You know,
so public investment alone will not revive growth. That's the point.
Well, on the public investment part, you look at the announcements and look at the reality. How many roads were built? How many toilets were constructed? So the announcements are one thing, the actual realization.
So there are deficits there also.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much, Rajeev Gowda, for talking to us. That's all we have in this edition of State of the Economy. We'll be back with you next week. Thanks for watching.